So again, wonderful good morning to all of you, and thank you so much for joining. I thought that it would be a great opportunity to do a Zoom session on More Inside. Part of the reason that I wanted to do it is because I love our styling line. But the other reason is that generally speaking, when I do our product families, which next Friday I'm going through all of the product families, I leave More Inside to last because I feel like as a stylist, we should understand styling products. But then I never really get a chance to go into it. So we're sort of left without having this opportunity. So I thought, let's just cover this completely on its own so that it gets the attention that it deserves. So with that, the session will probably not even be a complete hour. But of course, any questions you have, just type in the group chat or else unmute yourself, and then we'll go from there. So before I even get into More Inside, I always want to remind myself, and probably good to kind of for you to have one of your own reminders or else find your own reasons, but why Davines? Because as we think of what it's like to be a consumer, specifically if we're going to go into styling, pretty well any manufacturer is going to have a gel, a hairspray, a mousse, a smoother, a texturizer. All of those types of performing products are going to exist out there. And as another kind of concept to consider, they all are going to have certain performance benefits because if they didn't, the lines wouldn't be able to exist. The only reason that businesses can exist is if there is people supporting them and a following and an impact with how they perform. So of course our products are going to perform and other products will perform too. We'll all have our own personal preferences based on our hair texture, our desired style, but also just even kind of where a product comes from. So with that, that's why I want to really bring home the fact of why Davines for me. When I think about the environment, which most people think of me as being a supporter for sustainability, I'm going to say that's going to be the first reason why. So as a consumer, if I'm going to be making a choice in buying a product, if I know that I can make a choice in buying a sustainable product, I'm going to feel like I'm making a good choice there. So then it kind of balances out some of the choices that we can't control, the sustainability or other aspects. So when I bring that up and I say about sustainability, first thing people say is, okay, well, are your products all natural? And if we think about it, logic is going to tell us that we can't use 100% natural ingredients to have products 100% perform for styling, at least not at this capacity or in this era. So with the technology that we have, what we're saying is that these products are going to be sustainable because we only use natural ingredients when the natural ingredients can improve the performance of the product. But most importantly is what happens when we get the ingredients, what happens when we're manufacturing the products, and also what happens afterwards, and including the packaging. So these are all points that are going to be really important to consider. So when people understand why Davines, they won't get so hung up on, is that 100% natural? But they'll understand that this product itself, by supporting Davines, is improving the world we live in. So with that, understanding that concept, all of the products are manufactured and formulated, and the research and development is done completely in Parma, Italy, in our Davines Village. Our Davines Village, when we're manufacturing products, all of the packaging, including the paper that we're using, and the Davines offices, every last bit is 100% zero impact. And how we do that is that we work with Ethio trees to offset the carbon emissions. So that's going to be based out of Ethiopia, where there's many different aspects that are covered, from planting trees to water irrigation to supporting the local communities. And so that as a whole creates the zero impact for Davines products, the manufacturing, the research and development, but also how all of the offices operate, and including the people that work with Davines, their flights and travel. So it goes so deep coming from a zero impact. Then what we're going to consider the fact is that in manufacturing, the whole facility is running on renewable energy. And so renewable energy is looking at coming from wind, rain, sun, but also geothermal energy, which means the energy operating the whole facility is coming from those sources, including geothermal, which comes from the center of the earth. So these are all wonderful aspects that when I think the end consumer realizes, they automatically want to understand and try these high performing products. The other factor is that Davines is certified as a B Corporation. A B Corporation is a unique and challenging certification that proves as a company they do better things for the world than what they do against it. And so, what I mean by that is that pretty well all of us, unless you have a program where you donate money to plant trees to balance off your personal carbon emissions, then what you're going to find is that you unfortunately are contributing to the negative aspects of carbon emissions and of course to further pollution and the other things that go on within our world. So with that, by having a B Corporation, the certification proves that you are, as a company, meaning Davines as a company, only makes the world a better place. So this is going to be a really great factor to be able to share. I would do your research if you have some time to look up what it means to be a B Corporation. It means that there's so many parts as a company that the company has to instill and implement so that they can prove that for their people, for the communities, for their products, that they are making the world better. So great certification. And it is also fun once you look it up to see the other companies that you can support to also make that choice. The more choices that we make for making the world better is going to obviously improve the conditions of everything. I feel like in this pause that we've recently had, consumers are going to be more cautious and paying closer attention to the choices they make. We do want to shop local when we can, meaning supporting our local businesses, and we do want to support sustainability. So all of those factors will be incredibly important. So those are going to be my reasons for why Davines, and specifically when we look into more inside. So now as a styling line, when we get into why this line was created and how, let's start with the outside packaging. So as you can see with the packaging, initially the first thought that someone may say is, okay, you just brought up sustainability and now you have packaging that has a secondary layer. So what I'm referring to is that this packaging is what would look similar to this packaging, but it is hand wrapped. So with this, because Davines uses the plastic that is going to be bio-based, so that is going to mean that it is made from a natural sugar, but also renewable resources. When we look at that, we are already doing a checklist in the right direction for sustainability. That plastic has an easier time to break down, which means when it's recycled properly, it is going to be very, very minimal carbon impact, but also the fact that it is 80% less toxic in the whole process of manufacturing. Then, when you think of this paper is completely compostable. So the paper is trees that are planted. I was going to say the paper was planted, but the paper is trees that were planted. That is called FSC, Forest Station Stewardship Council. So these trees were planted with the purpose of this paper. The inks are going to be vegetable-based and the glues are going to be water-soluble. So with this, Davines said, even creating a secondary packaging that is completely compostable with the bio-based plastic is going to be far more sustainable than almost any other hair care company that we can think of at this point. So with us, we thought of when we're having and showing gratitude, you wrap something for a person as a gift. When we think of many different cultures, if you were to buy something that was beautiful and of quality, they would hand wrap it and they would sort of walk around the counter and present it to you as a gift. So we said, the styling component is sort of looking at that special gift that we're giving to you. So this is going to be how our More Inside is. Also considering the fact, as I touched on, that it is hand wrapped. I used to have this imagination that it was sort of like the older Italian grandmothers, the nonas, like hand wrapping. But no, it's just the guys in the warehouse for the most part that are hand wrapping these, which is still an incredible visual. And it is a great thought to think of that time and care, that personal touch was created now and transferred onto you. So when you open these up, you're going to see that when you open it up, there will also be a cute little message that shares concepts about the styling, but it also meant for the fact that you can reuse this in many different ways, or at the very least, compost it. So this is going to be the story behind the basic overall view of the packaging. When we think of the term more inside, so people are like, well, where did that come from? When you go with the word more inside, it means that there's always more to discover. So we've shared very, very simple names. This is a texturizing serum because it's telling you that this is what it is. But there's no rules that say you can't try it for another purpose. So there's always going to be more inside for you to discover. So there's constantly a journey as a stylist. I'm a stylist myself, so I am a stylist by nature. I want to say that, we're incredibly creative beings. And sometimes we limit ourselves to reading just what's on here. So I want to encourage you to take what it is that I'm going to share, but at the same time to explore yourself, because you may find so many other uses that I would never have thought of, and many other people within Davines wouldn't. But that's going to be what is more inside for you and unique. Now, the last part that I'll cover on the packaging is the fact that when you look at the back, you're going to see that there are zeros and X's. These zeros and X's are going to tell us that the maximum hold could be 5, but in this case, we're going to see 2 X's, which means it is a 2 out of 5 hold. Okay, so that's going to be fairly straightforward for you to be able to tell. Hold is an interesting concept, though, because when you think of hold, I tend to think of a hairspray, right? Like when you think of a hairspray, that gives me complete hold. Sometimes texture, so texture is where like hair is kind of lying upon itself and it's creating that fullness and thickness, that can be mistaken or thought of as hold. So that's where sometimes I'll look at something like the texturizing serum and say a 2 hold, and I'm like, wow, that's only a 2 hold? Well, it's only a 2 hold in the fact that it can only hold my hair up to a certain capacity, but the texture factor is going to be higher, which will make me feel like it is going to give me more hold. So that's going to be kind of how you can read between the lines with how the numbering system works on the back. So then the other factor to consider is that in our more inside, there are going to be 2 fragrances. The majority of the products are going to have ginger and cypress. I have to say that probably of any of our products, which I love all of the fragrances, this is going to be unanimously probably everyone's favorite. Anytime that I'm using a product on someone's hair for the first time, they're like, wow, what is that? So ginger, you're probably familiar with it. And cypress is a type of fir tree, right? So if you ever were to feel sort of the pine needles from a fir, from a cypress tree, you'd kind of be able to smell it. It would just have that awakening feeling. So it's kind of like a little bit of a unique mixture, but the fragrance is incredible. Then some of our hairsprays, including our texturizing serum, are vanilla and grapefruit. So that also smells like something delicious. We ended up using the fragrances for those because of the fact that our previous line for styling over or almost a decade ago was called For Wizards, and that fragrance was similar to that. And so we sort of brought a few products back in with that fragrance to kind of bring, I guess, a nostalgic feeling, but also to kind of create a beautiful aroma. So that's where you're going to see the 2 overall fragrances in the whole More Inside line. So now let's look at the factors. The factors that are considered to give us the performance, the overall view of the one, or all of them, sorry, is going to be the fact that we have what's called H2O technology. So H2O, thinking as what it means, water, is basically a slow release water system that basically has the ability to kind of keep the hair completely hydrated throughout time and to create more longevity. The technology that we used in that, and what is kind of unique, is the fact that we looked at the fact of when you're using medicine. So when you're taking, cold serums, or you're taking any type of medicine and medication, it has technology that allows it to slowly release into your system. So what you can find is that by using More Inside, it slowly releases, using the same technology, moisture into the hair. So why would that be so important? When you think of something that is moisture or full of moisture, I like to draw an analogy from thinking of hair like a sponge. So if we were to think of a sponge, and we were to think of a really dry sponge, a sponge that, maybe was at a summer cabin or something, and it's just been sitting there a long time and it's kind of got that crunchy feeling. That could be like hair that's very dehydrated. So if that hair is dehydrated, when water goes onto it, immediately what's going to happen is the areas where the water fell onto the sponge is going to kind of expand. So now you have areas that are crispy and areas that expanded. Whereas if the water goes universally and sort of throughout the whole entire sponge, it gets full and plump consistently. So if water is released, moisture is released into the hair, you're going to allow the hair to have plump, full volume that is not going to change in texture. So that means it's going to be great for humidity, and it is also going to be great for dry conditions. And of course, depending on where you live. So for me, I live in Vancouver, meaning more of a rainforest. So for me, I'm going to want it for the fact that it is not going to allow my hair to get frizzy from too much kind of untextured kind of feeling where the hair is dry with moisture. Whereas someone else, maybe if they live more in a drier area of the world or of Canada or the States, they're going to find they're going to like it because it's going to stop their hair from becoming static. So these are going to be great factors. And so that, unless your hair gets wet, you're going to feel that your hairstyle will last longer. It also is using technology that allows all of our products to be completely water soluble. This is a very unique aspect for a styling line. You'll find specifically with guys, when guys come into your chair, if they're using another product line, you go and you wash their hair, and what happens? The water kind of spouts back out after, because it kind of doesn't absorb into the hair. It's like the product works as like something that repels it. It's almost like duck feathers. And sometimes you'll feel like you do one shampoo and it is not coming out at all. Of course, for me, for people that like to use a lot of product like that, I'm going to recommend the Solu in the shampoo, or the Solu sea salt scrub, or the detoxifying scrub as something that they should be using once a week regardless. But if they're using Davines products, they will not get that buildup because the products are water soluble. So why would it be so important to have something that's water soluble? For one, if you're building up a bit of a waxy coat, that's also building up on a scalp. And so for guys that are concerned with hair loss and concerned with the condition of their scalp and their hair, they are going to want to make sure that they are using products that are water soluble so that it allows their scalp to still be breathing instead of that built up residue. But also for their hair texture, if something is sort of building up, it's not allowing moisture to go in or moisture to come out. So it's kind of creating a coating, and that will make the hair feel dry, but it also can make it feel frizzy. So it becomes sort of like a compounding fact. So again, when you're using the Davines products, they are water soluble, so you're not going to have those same issues. I feel like that simple conversation will generally let men and guys get more attracted to our styling line. So with that, when we think about how does that work, the fact that you're going to find that they're water soluble, but they also have more longevity is going to be incredible. There's a great story, obviously, with the styling line in the packaging. And the other part with the packaging that I did forget to mention is that each of the paper, so each of the styling lines has a different paper, and it's all drawn to represent the cathedrals and the insides of the beautiful buildings within Italy. So it's that idea of we have sort of our history, but with new technology, so that we're kind of completing that complete cycle, representing Italy and Europe completely. So that's going to be kind of where you see it. So now let's jump into more how of each of the products work. So I've kind of broken them into categories to kind of help us working with different textures and different needs. So of course, keep in mind that all styling products are going to give an enhanced styling capability when you're using heat. But for the most part, all of these products are going to be able to work. Funny enough, in my hair this morning, I did let my hair dry naturally, and you may say I can tell, but I did let my hair dry naturally, and I just sprayed in when it was wet, texturizing spray. So I'm actually going to start with the texture family, probably because it's what I like to use for my hair, but we'll just start with it because that's where I'm coming from. So this texturizing spray is actually, again, what most people would have thought of as a texturizing spray that you spray into hair when it is dry to create volume, fullness, and texture. When we look at a texturizing spray, the simple way to help you understand what it's like is it's a texturizing powder mixed with a hairspray and a dry shampoo. So it's kind of like all three of those combined together that gives this great result. People that feel like they have flat hair And that could be from being fine in texture, but it could also come from being very long and heavy and weighted. So it can really work for all types of hair. With this, we're going to turn it around. And as I shared with the texturizing serum, it is a 2-hold. So what we've done now is we've created it in a serum form and in a spray form. So generally, I actually like to use the serum and blow dry it in, but top secret, not really. Personal side note, I'm moving in a week to a new home, and I ended up packing this one by mistake. So this is what I will live with for the week, because I'm not going to use my work products. So with that, it is great to be able to have both purposes, and they have a great performance. So if I were to blow dry this in, I could get a lot more control, a lot more lift and texture built in that I could finish with the texturizing spray. Or if I wanted a lighter texture, I can just use the spray, wet or dry. So again, be flexible and open-minded with how you can use them. I'm going to tell you these two are for sure, without a doubt, our top sellers, because again, they can be used on any different type of texture and any different length. So those are going to be the first two in our texture spray conversation. So because I mentioned a texturizing powder or dust, and I mentioned a dry shampoo, I thought that I would use this as an opportunity to jump into these. So when you look at the texturizing dust, this one actually has a 3-hold. So this is going to be a lot stronger. When we work with a texturizing dust, I always want to say to kind of give it a little bit of a shake. What that's going to do is it's going to allow the powder to kind of get lifted and elevated so that it's light and soft when it disperses. Sometimes things settle a little bit, so then if you were to dump it out, it may come in kind of not as much of a wanted texture, but also it just may come too clumped in one area. So options are that when you open it up, you can use it just tapping it and use it in the root area, and this will give people a lot of that root lift. When people come in to see you and they say, it always feels so flat in my crown, or I always want to feel like I get more lift in my roots, this is going to be a great product, the texturizing dust, to be able to enhance that texture and fullness immediately. But if you kind of did a beautiful set and you wanted to kind of allow that to have a little bit more movement and softness and control without the texture of a spray, because a spray, once it hardens, kind of creates a different feeling on the hair and even a different shine. So this, the texturizing dust, you could sprinkle in, just imagining I had longer curly hair, sprinkle in, and then you could sort of work it into the hair and expand it. And it just gives so soft fullness, but with texture, that you can kind of keep reworking throughout the day. So that's going to be your other texture family, your texturizing dust. Dry shampoo, this is our hair refresher. I love this. This is going to have, it's going to have a very citrus, so yuzu, so it's going to have that citrus feeling that's going to give you that great fragrance, but it is also going to use a rice starch. The rice starch has the ability to absorb unwanted oils. A few tips for people that like to use a dry shampoo. The one is if you feel that you are prone to oily hair, I sometimes will use this proactive, meaning I will use this before my hair gets oily so that it helps absorb the oil as the oil happens. Or, of course, you can use it after. So a great dry shampoo that's going to help get rid of unwanted odors. So that could be from smoke, it could come from food odors, it could come from oily odors, whatever it is, it will help absorb the oils, but also the odors. So both the odors and the oils can be absorbed with the hair refresher, the dry shampoo. So this will be, it doesn't have a hold factor, but this is going to be lighter. I'm going to put it in that maybe 0 or 1. Because of the texture, it will feel like there's more of a hold factor to it. Now, of course, we do not want to forget our sea salt spray. So speaking of a 1, you can see on the back here that this is a 1-hold. Our sea salt spray is also one of our top sellers, and it is very recognizable by the fragrance, but by the performance. So how does a sea salt spray work? Basically, however you want it to. So it could be used wet to be able to create nice texture in the hair. A lot of people that have fine hair and even movement to it, so a little bit of wave or a little bit of kink in it, really enjoy this because they allow the fact to kind of allow the sea salt spray to kind of create that texture and fullness, but also movement where it's not feeling controlled. And that's where that 1-hold comes into play. So this can be wet. you spray it in and just let it dry. And that as it dries, you kind of start to feel and kind of work it in, and it builds up that fullness. Or you could do it completely dry. Sometimes completely dry, if someone has longer hair or even mid-length hair, kind of have them hang upside down, spray this all through and kind of work your hands in, give it like a little massage. And naturally, you're going to see that the hair has fullness and texture and life to it. Because of it being a sea salt spray, and pretty well for the most part, I'm going to say all of these products are not going to be giving the hair tons of shine. I will say though that the texturizing serum was created to give us a little bit more shine from the texture side of things. Because naturally, when you think of texture, we're creating a little bit of that surface texture that allows the hair to build up upon itself, which means it's not going to have the extreme shine. So what if you wanted to have the extreme shine and texture? Now we're going to jump over to the shimmering mist. The shimmering mist, as you can see on the back, has 0 hold. But when we created the shimmering mist, and heads up for those of you that do not live in Canada, Canada has us put these unwanted but mandatory labels saying that you're not supposed to smoke or that it could catch fire. So I apologize for that. Most of my containers I have from the States so that it doesn't have this unattractive label, but it is part of the Canada regulation. So same product. But with that, this is going to give us beautiful, beautiful shine, but it also has a texture base in it. So why that's great is that if I wanted my hair to have texture from any of these texture products, but I wanted an enhanced shine, I could go ahead and spray this on my hair over top as a finishing product that will give us that beautiful shimmer. At the same time, you can use this in wet hair, and it can help gently detangle hair, but it will also blow dry in beautifully. So for those of you that like to use oils, if you feel like you wanted something a little lighter, you could go ahead and use the shimmering mist and blow dry that in. So that's going to give a nice soft finish, wet or dry, again, with 0 hold. So that's how we work in with the shimmering mist. So now that we've kind of covered this, the texture, and then jumped into shine, I'm going to continue with the hairsprays. They're fairly straightforward and simple, but it is good just to kind of have that conversation. No gas spray. This is going to be a great setting spray. A great setting spray for the fact that you can use this to allow the curl or even a flat iron to have more longevity. My recommendation is take a section and use the iron, a flat iron, or curl it, and then take another section, spray the no gas spray in. Obviously make sure that it's dry. Don't put an iron on when it's wet, but it will dry quite quickly. And then use the difference and see. Immediately, I always would do that with my guests too. Immediately people will see why they want to be using this spray, because it gives a different shine, but it also gives a hold. But the hold factor, as you can see here, is a 2. So the hold is not extremely strong, but it does allow the hair to hold, but at the same time you can break it apart. When we look at what the nozzle in this one looks like, you're going to see that it is a pump spray. So this will have lower VOC, so it will be kind of a pump instead of emitting into the environment in the same way. This is an important conversation to have, because when you think of the sprays that emit high into the environment and the atmosphere, they are going to be more toxic. So our sprays are going to be lower in that category, but what that means is it means you have to be more diligent in cleaning and washing them. So even for me, I have to remind myself when I have my hairsprays. So when I have my medium hairspray, which is the one we're going to, which as you can see on the back is a 3 hold, right in here in the nozzle, when I'm done using it, I have to make sure that periodically I go ahead and wash or wet this. If not, when I go to spray it, it could spray me in the eye. Not a great idea, but in support of the environment, we don't want a spray that's going to spray out and hard, because it does evaporate up higher. So in this case, just remember, part of us supporting the environment is that the spray is going to be a little bit more gentle in how it's dispersed. So it just means we can do more care. Like anything we use, it does require care and attention, but it is not a big deal. I'm just giving you kind of the heads up in that conversation. So medium hairspray is going to be a 3 hold. Strong hairspray is going to be 5 holds. Then just to throw things off, we have an 5 plus. So that means we made an extra strong hairspray. I have to say, there really is a purpose and a performance factor that I appreciate in all of them. And originally, my thoughts were, okay, if we have a strong, why do you need an extra strong? But it does just give you that extra strength and the ability to kind of fight more humidity throughout the day, and the hair doesn't move. So if you have a shorter texture, for me, if I really wanted this part to stay up, I could just spray with the extra strong and I would know that it's not moving at all. But if I wanted it to be a style where I could run my hands through it throughout the day, like I did today, then I used the texturizing spray and I used a medium hairspray. So it kind of gives you the options, depending on what it is you want, but also what hair you're working with. You can have the options of all the different hairsprays. So those are going to be the cans that we have. Then now I'm going to go into what I would look at when I wanted to create volume or think of more of round brushing blow dries. So in this case, we will pull more of the blow drying products forward for shine, softness, and fullness. So these are going to be the three that I'm going to start with. So in this case, we have what's called a volume boosting mousse. The name pretty well says it all. I've been told that the whole reason that mousse was created in this type of a visual foam was that when you're distributing through the hair, the nice factor is that you can see physically where the mousse is distributed. Some people like to put the mousse on a comb or a brush to distribute it. Other people put it in their hands. But what you'll see with this is that the mousse gets really, really large and full. So it tells you how much fullness and volume and weightlessness that you have. Again, you can see on the back that it is a 3-hold. So it's a fairly good solid hold. In this, you could just leave it be as is or do a beautiful round brush blow dry. What you're going to find is thinking of the texture that you're going to have a weightless kind of body full bounce motion to your blow dry for volume. So as the name says, volume boosting mousse. This is great for a short haircut if you wanted to get a round brush in there and to kind of give a nice pop and fullness, or it could be great for longer hair. So really all textures and all lengths to give you that extra boost and root lift. Then we could move to our medium hold modeling gel. In this case, it is a 3-hold as well. Don't let this one fool you because it is a gel consistency. A lot of times people will forget or not even consider that you could use this as a beautiful blow dry gel. Thinking of the texture difference, if you have one that's a mousse and one that's a gel, the gel is going to give you more ability to hold the shape of your brush. So if you're a wizard in round brushing and you can kind of twist your brush and move it into all different shapes, the mousse may not be your ideal form because the mousse is going to give you that pop and fullness. Whereas you may want to use the medium hold modeling gel to get the term modeling, molding out of your hair. If you wanted to kind of blow dry the hair under, blow dry the hair out, kind of give a nice control where the hair maybe has a cowlick or a strong growth pattern, I would highly recommend this. I do have to say it's quite incredible the fact of the size of this because you often don't consider the fact of how concentrated this is. So this will last you a very, very long time. And the other ability that you'll get from this is that this one is going to give you the capability of having a very much a wet look. So let's say you blow dried your hair and you wanted to have it wet, like a wet curled look or kind of a wet area where you kind of pulled it off of your face or any details. This is going to give you a great wet look. Or you're going more down the retro side of things and you wanted to have more finger waves, this would be a great setting lotion for that as well. So although it is a 3-hold like the mousse, you're going to find this will hold the shape of a brush or kind of a curl motion or wave motion, whereas the volume boosting mousse is going to give you more pop and more fullness. Now we move to oil, non-oil. As we can see in this one, it is a 1-hold. So that tells us there's not an actual lot of hold to it. Let's think of the name oil, non-oil. So Davide, who is the founder and chairman of Davines, where the name comes from. Davines comes from the Bilotti family, the son and the daughter, Davide and Stefania, the 2 names merged together. This was one of the very, very first styling products that was ever made by Davines that relived through every relaunch of styling. Why that's important for me to know is that it obviously has such an incredible performance, but also history that it was worth bringing into every single styling line. The name Oil Non-Oil means it performs like the benefits and performance of an oil without being an oil. How incredible is that? So you literally can feel like the hair has an oil in it, but without it being oily. Some people don't like oils, but also it's hard to get a one hold out of an oil. So this can be used wet or dry. It gives a perfect invisible shape in the hair. So what I mean by that, if you love technical haircuts. Let's say you cut hair in a very Vidal Sassoon way, technical, nice, clean shapes where you just shake your hair and they dry beautifully. I have a feeling that those are going to be very important coming up, just with the idea of having people for less time in our environments. So this could be a really great support product. I was actually having a conversation with some of the sales consultants and I said, and again, it's going to depend on where you live. So remember, I'm in Vancouver, Canada. I know some of you are from different places and countries and states, and even, different cities are going to have regulations. But I was thinking, we almost may need to have our own few little styling products, because the words that I've heard are the fact that if you can't sanitize it, then you need to dispose of it. But of course, many times we'd have this as a styling station that everyone would be sharing, but it's not supposed to be done that way in the same way. So I'm like, well, you have a few products that you pick that each person has at their station. So I'm like, well, this would be for sure one of my picks, because again, it makes hair look better than it looks naturally, but it doesn't make it look like it has product in it. And it's perfect enhancement for a clean, straightforward look that gives enhancement. So if you had like a beautiful clean bob, and let's say you used a volume boosting mousse, when you blow dried it, it would still look beautiful and clean, but you would lose where all of the line is coming because you'd be lifting it up. It could almost look a bit more graduated, whereas an Oil Non-Oil would allow the hair to completely hang perfectly, beautifully with a light shine, light hold in that shape. So straight, curly, long, short, whatever you like. And actually, I just touched on with curly. I love this for a soft curled feeling. It just gives the right feeling to the hair, keeping that curl definition, but softness. So try this one out, Oil Non-Oil. And again, the container, the size of this is quite large for how long it's able to last. So very concentrated. So those are going to be the ones that I would look at when I'm looking at more from a styling perspective of giving that round brush feeling and just that basic smoothness. Now we're going to move to the curl side of things. So I did touch with the Oil Non-Oil being a product that you could use for curly hair, but of course, we do have products that are specifically for this. Now keep in mind when you're using the Essential Hair Care, the leave-in conditioners in the Essential Hair Care are like a leave-in or leave-on face cream. They are your foundation, whereas the styling line is going to be more like your makeup and your final finishing. So in that case, we have a curl moisturizing mousse. You can see on the back, it's a 3-hold. So now you're saying, okay, we have 2 mousses, both 3-hold. One is volume and one is curl moisturizing. Curls often lack in extra moisture. They can feel a little bit dry or brittle. And that's because at the root area, the oil kind of comes in quite strong, but as it moves through the ends of the hair, it can get a little bit drier because it doesn't have the ability to get through to the ends. So in this case, what you're going to find with your curl moisturizing mousse is it's giving moisture right the way through from roots, mids, and ends. You can use this wet or dry. So enhancing curl. If we look at the curl building serum, this one is going to be a 2-hold, and you're going to think of the fact that this is a serum versus a mousse. So the serum is going to give you a little bit more of kind of like an elasticized feeling, but also texture feeling, whereas the mousse is going to give you higher shine, higher definition. So if you let these both dry in, this one will have more definition, higher shine, and almost a little bit of a crunch factor until you squeezed it to kind of break up that feeling. Whereas the serum, based on the texture, is going to have a little bit more softness to the feeling of the curl. So great to have these 2 different options. I did decide to pull this one out because this is brand new for us to have a travel size or trial size. Personally, for me, because my hair is naturally curly, when my hair gets a little longer, this one I will survive off for a very, very long time because again, they are quite concentrated. So that's what you're going to see with this. When we think of value with Davines, it really is of such strong value. I say you look at the fact of, like I touched on, the concentration factor, you look at the fact of the research and development, all in-house in Parma, Italy, the 100% zero, impact, 100% renewable energy, and zero waste. All of those components are really kind of elevating the quality of the product and performance. So for that, it is quite impressive for the value that you get. So now we're going to move to our tubes before we move to the little tins. So I will grab all of these forward so we can go through them all. I thought that I would keep these ones together. Sorry, just bear with me. So we'll go from strongest to the least strong. The strongest is going to be our Stronghold Cream Gel. So imagine that is going to be, as you can see here, a 4-hold. This is a great product if I wanted to have a complete slicked down, slicked back look, or for guys that just really feel comfortable having a strong gel. When you put it in your hands and you rub it together, as it starts to dry, you go like this, and it's hard to actually pull obviously you can pull your fingers apart, but it can kind of feel like that extra bit of tackiness. So this is going to be a great gel, and keep in mind, it is water soluble. When I was behind the chair, I had a male client that loved gels, and he was sort of the gel connoisseur. He said by far this was the best gel that he had ever come across, and here's why. He said it had the right amount of shine without too much of that high gloss shine. But he said it didn't flake at all, and it also completely washed out of his hair. He was a bit of that silver fox, where his hair was quite white with a little bit of that gray kind of white feeling, and it never discolored his hair at all. Where he said many of the other gels or waxes or creams would start to make his hair yellow. So I do have to say, I love the fact when clients have given me this type of feedback, because for me, I believe in it and I'm confident, but if I'm not using it every day, I don't have the same personal connection to know. As you can tell, I'm more personally passionate about the texturizing based on my own needs and what I like. But then when I hear stories like this, it really, really makes me feel solid in the knowledge, but also in the performance. Now, in a tube form, thinking of texturizing, this is called a medium hold pliable paste. Definitely for many salons, this is their top seller too. It is a 2-hold. So keep in mind, texture in a tube. So with this, by it being quite textured, excuse me, you're going to see that you can get a fair bit of hold in a texture feeling. You can get a great pompadour out of it. But if you were to put it in and try to blow dry with a round brush, you may get a little stuck because of the thickness of the cream and texture. Lots of talking, so I just have my water. So yeah, this is going to be a great product. Again, wet or dry. I love it almost for a beachy, creamy feeling. Great for men as well, because a lot of men are going to like a hold factor of a 2 that has that beachy feeling, but control with a gentle hold. So this is going to be a great support for you, in it being a medium hold modeling gel. Then, total opposite of many of what we've been discussing is going to be the moisturizing relaxing fluid. This one has a 1-hold. So a very, very gentle hold, but enough hold to be able to hold hair from curly to straight. So when you're going to blow dry it, you want to be able to blow dry it in where your hair will stay completely straight. If you didn't blow dry it in, it will have the ability to relax and soften the curl and motion to kind of have a good collapse. But if you round brush this in, you would get a beautiful straight finish. And keep in mind that slow release moisture is going to allow the hair to keep hydrated and soft while being bone straight. So definitely a great product for straightening. Then this is an invisible serum. Definitely a favorite as well, meaning it is a 1-hold, but this makes the hair feel like it's lived in. Sometimes when we blow dry hair, and depending on the texture and the quantity, it can feel like it's kind of big and full and puffy. So this is a great product where you use a tiny mitt, thinking of the fact of the size of this, and this is going to just make the hair feel more lived in, more separated, and gentle definition. I've even found that it's great for guys' hair that are short, that just kind of makes the hair, again, not feel so puffy. And specifically right now, it's a great product, thinking of the fact of how much people have had to let their hair grow in, then their hair starts to feel like it's getting bigger instead of coming down sometimes. This would be a great product to be able to control that and make it not feel as expansive. So this will be our invisible serum. Now at this point, we will go into the tins so that you can have a better understanding of the difference in all of the tins. So the tins we came up with are 5 of them, and they each have a definite performance factor. But again, it is something that you can play with to find out for yourself the best way to use these. This is a shine wax. I love this one. This is a great support for any texture of hair and for pretty well anyone. It is a 2-hold. So how about that to have a shine product that still has a bit of hold? So how I would use this is you open the tin. You can see there's been my finger in there a few times. And so with that, what you would do is you would rub it in your hands and you could smooth it along a hairline part, or you could rub it through the ends of hair to kind of give definition, shine, control flyaways. But if you want to do a slick back ponytail or a top knot, you could also kind of just like push it along the edges to get all those flyaways away in pulling the hair up and back and off your face. Also a great slick product even for a guy. So this is a great tin and concentrated. This is a forming pomade, which also is a 2-hold. So interesting, you have a product that has high shine, but this one is going to give you the ability to have what we consider very flexible and pliable. When you think of the term pliable, pliable means that if I wanted, I could put a hat on and I could take the hat off, and with the heat of my hands, I could rework my hair enough so that my style could be reworked or come back alive. So this is going to be our forming pomade, which is more of a creamy, so it's not going to be shine, more creamy, but in that same hold factor. Definitely one of our more popular for guys, but also popular for that mid-length or shorter hair. This one is going to be the finishing gum. We bump up a hold factor to 3. This one will go back a little bit more into the shine or neutral finish, but it again is so pliable and flexible, and it just gives the right natural finish and hold. So definitely a great support for many of your mid to short hair, but also many of your men. Now we're moving to a clay. As we go into our clay, you'll see we're jumping now to a 4-hold. Clays are going to be naturally more matte. So as you can see, we kind of have different options in strength and different options in consistency. So when you look at this, I think you can probably tell that there is the clay finish to it. So there's not really a lot of shine, like there's a sheen because of the sun, but it is a fairly matte product. I like to use this a lot on lighter colors of hair. Not the fact that it will not make, like if I use it on mine, it's not going to make my hair look white, but what you find is that the lighter the color of hair, the more reflection that you get on it when it's shorter. Sometimes it makes the hair seem more warm, whereas a clay on like a blonde hair that's short kind of keeps it looking very cool and crisp and matte finish, which doesn't give the same light reflection, which keeps the gold shimmer off of hair. But at the same time, it does have the water soluble capability and the great strength to it. Last but not least is going to come to our, sometimes the back is in the opposite direction as the top. So 5-hold for our wax. So this is going to be our strongest product. And again, with this one, great performing factor, very little bit, warm it up. If you ever found that any of the tins, sometimes if for whatever reason the lid didn't get put on properly or they just were dried because you were at the bottom, you can always get a little bit in your hand, and if you feel like you can get the blow dryer just to warm it up a little bit, or even just rub your hands together first so that they're warm, so that the heat will kind of activate that wax or that clay to allow it to distribute easily. You do want to make sure that it is distributed evenly in your hands before going in your hair so you don't end up with any clumps. Keeping in mind when things are concentrated, you do want to really work them through so that they can distribute evenly and smoothly. So with that, that's going to be what you see with our More Inside line. It definitely covers every different texture, every different length, every different style, but can be used wet or dry while supporting sustainability and the performance. We used to have a artistic director, a creative director called Angelo Seminara, who worked with us for many years. One of the things that I love about the More Inside line is the fact that he worked together with the Davines chemists to create this line. So why that would be important is the fact that he is a stylist like us that does editorial work, but also works behind the chair with clients. And so what he finds is that he helped create this to be able to support the needs that he would have as a stylist, while Davines ensured we were supporting sustainability. So with that, it's the complete package for styling. In my mind, no other choiche. So I hope you've been able to find some new tips and new reasons for connecting with Mornside, but even possibly maybe some products that you could try and cherish for yourself. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, I'm grateful that you guys were all able to join this morning. Hang on, I'll read the that was great and so helpful. Thank you so much. I don't see who your name is. It just says Pixel 4XL, but thank you. I'm happy to hear. Thank you, Motion. Nice to have you with me and with us. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then from there, you guys can message. And again, remember to message me if you'd like a copy of the recording. Just message me your email, and I will send that to you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Nav. Nice to see you here too.